you playing?
Greetings, and welcome to What the Bleep Are You Playing? A podcast where we play a game, many times bad, and tell you why the bleep we played it. I am Crash Dummy Sean. This is On Fire Thomas. And Mason, who just got launched out of a car window. But good news! They got a royal flush.
Oh, yay.
How you guys doing?
I'm doing fantastic. I am so excited to be talking about this game.
I would be doing fine if it wasn't on fire. Get the fucking extinguisher, bitch.
So we're played FlatOut 2. We played the PlayStation 2 version. I also played the Steam version a little later, but
If the Steam version would have worked for me, I would have played.
this game's fun.
Oh my god.
Yeah, let's get
This
that out of
game's
the way.
just fun.
This is a fun. This was my choice for
I
the
think
week.
it's not the best game, but I would argue this is probably the most fun game we've played.
Oh
Yeah.
man.
So
Oh yeah.
let's get that out of the way. This game's fun as hell.
It's
Like,
so fun.
There's no beating around the bush. This game's fun as hell.
And
yeah.
I played a lot of the mini games with Thomas. So we played some two-player of the stunt stuff in it, and that's Thomas flinging his driver through flames of hoops.
I fell into the burning
Ring
ring
of
of fire,
fire.
and then it fell on me.
That happened multiple times. This game, so FlatOut 2 is a racing game developed by Bugbear Entertainment,
Bugbear Entertainment, who has developed nothing but racing games.
including one game for the N-Gage.
Oh jeez.
That's right.
That's the
I forgot
taco
about that.
phone, right?
It's the game
yeah,
phone. It's
yeah,
the
the
game
taco
phone
phone.
thing.
They developed Glimmerati, a racing game for the N-Gage. Things I looked up. But yeah, developed by Bugbear Entertainment. It was published by Empire Interactive in Europe and Vivendi Universal Games in North America.
And Vivendi Universal just does a bunch of random shit. Like, you look at their publishing history, and it's just a bunch of random shit.
And Bugbear in 2000, let me get the date correct on here, in 2018 was purchased by THQ Nordic.
They were purchased by THQ Nordic, and the last game that they made, again a racing game, was Wreckfest, which I really love. It's a lot more simulation based than FlatOut 2 was. Great racing game. I hate that it doesn't have local multiplayer. Mm-hmm. Other than that, it's fantastic.
Local multiplayer is sadly, like,
dying,
if not dead.
Yeah, which is incredibly unfortunate and sad that Wreckfest was a victim of that. But yeah, before that they made FlatOut 2, which I think is their crowning achievement.
Yeah.
Honestly.
I had actually never played any of the FlatOut games. I only kind of had a passing knowledge of the existence of the FlatOut games. It's a pretty big franchise.
From what I've heard, so there are 4 games. Mm-hmm. The first one is from what I've heard is okay. The second one I think is most oftenly considered the best, and then it was also remade again for the 360, and it was retitled Ultimate Carnage.
I was gonna
Ultimate
say, I
Destruction.
think it was Ultimate
Yeah.
Carnage.
So,
On the
And then
360 it's Ultimate Carnage, and then there was a PSP port of Ultimate Carnage called FlatOut Head On.
Right, and there were those 2. And then after that, Bugbear didn't develop any of the games. There were 2 more that came after that Bugbear did not have a hand in developing. There was FlatOut 3, which from what I've heard is absolute hell garbage and should be thrown into the sun and destroyed forever.
FlatOut 3 has like a 23% on Metacritic.
It's oftenly considered one of the worst video games of all time. And then FlatOut 4 is like a slight improvement on it.
FlatOut 4 got like a 6 out of 10s and whatever, so what I'm hearing is it's basically just okay.
Yeah, and I mean, this game, pretty good reviews overall. There's a little bit of variance, but it seems like the lowest reviews are around 6s, and the highest are, mid-8s, like 8.5s. It got pretty good reviews across the board. I guess I see one more here it had a 5.17 out of 10, so a couple low-ish. That's EGM.
EGM's harsh.
So, Electronic Gaming Monthly.
I guess.
But it also, in the accolades, it won IGN's Best PlayStation 2 Racing Game in 2006, as well as X-Play Best Racing Game of 2006. So, I don't know what other racing games came out in 2006 at the moment, but
That's a very good question.
But it was considered one of the best, and I can see it. The game feels at times like you're trying to mash together Gran Turismo, what would come before, and what would later come in Burnout.
Yeah.
In a lot of ways, the game is
Yeah.
kind of that mashed amalgamation of what those two games try to do.
I did also. I remember also having the original Burnout at the same time, and I think I slightly prefer FlatOut.
Oh yeah, Burnout did not get really good until Burnout 3.
Yeah, Burnout 3 was Burnout's magnum opus. So, I also do like Burnout Paradise.
I'd argue Burnout Paradise is where they peaked.
The beginning of their really good games was 3, though. That's the start.
Fair. That's
1 and
fair.
2 are. It's not even to say that 1 and 2 are bad games or not. It's that 3 was awesome.
Oh yeah.
I pretty much the only mode I didn't get a chance to play was Demolition Derby, but I've played basically every mode on the game at this point. So.
And I did play Demolition Derby.
Yeah.
But that was the only mode I didn't get to. I really like the stunt modes, the mini game type things.
Man, I was telling Thomas when I was playing it. When I first played it as a kid, that stunt mode was like pretty much all I ever played when I was a kid.
I mean, we've talked a lot in different games about, man, this game needed to lead into like party fun and different things like that. Well, hey, this game leans into it
to the point where you only need one controller, which I think really helps.
Yeah, you can just pass back and forth. Which Thomas and I didn't realize till halfway through all of the minigames.
Yeah, so I accidentally hit X while it was Sean's turn, and Sean just couldn't fucking move. I was like, what happened?
But those are all really fun.
The mini games where you have basketball, where you're launching your driver through a hoop. You have football, trying to drive through a football field and kick a field goal. You had baseball, where you're launching your driver at a bat and then having it launch back. Bowling. You had ski jump, which I was really good. I like ski jump.
Ring of Fire.
Curling. The Rings of Fire. You had a poker, which was really cool. That was one of the more interesting developed ideas on it. Darts, which Thomas and I were both really bad at.
We had
Stone skipping.
Oh yeah, stone skipping.
We had two very opposite reactions to the poker game when it came up, because Sean was like, "Oh, this is a cool idea," and I was just like, "Fuck, I've never even played poker."
There was a field goal game too.
That
one's very
the
hard.
soccer. Yeah, the one where you're kicking
the field goal one.
Yeah, it's the football. You have to go through the.
That one we did. That one there, the soccer one where you had to kick over like the 4 guys.
Yeah,
and
that one kicked my ass.
Yeah, getting the height right was a little hard on that one. Yeah, because you'd either go way too far over or you ended up right into the the crotch area of the goalie.
Yeah.
Which I think Thomas will agree with me on this, and I guarantee Mason probably will as well. But the best part of this game is that it just has the greatest ragdoll physics.
Oh man, the ragdoll physics.
That's the second best part of this game. We'll get to the first best part later. But
the ragdoll physics in this game are fantastic. One of my favorite things, even as a kid, to do is you get a little after you launch your driver. There's like a nudge button that you can use to get like a little bit of extra height. I never used it while I was in the air. I would always wait until I had gone to a full stop, and then I would just flop on the ground again.
Yeah, look, ragdoll physics make any game better.
And it's not only the ragdoll, it's the ragdoll physics along with those very visceral sound effects that come with smacking it.
The sound effects sound like you're just punching a bag of meat.
The sound design was really good in this game.
Oh, yeah.
From just the sound effects to the soundtrack to the, everything about it. I could imagine just having headphones and playing through this and enjoying everything.
And even looks wise, it looks really good. That's probably the one thing that I would put against it, is that it didn't quite look as good as I remember it looking. That may just be like nostalgia or blindness or whatever. But
it looks very similar to the games of the time. It looks very similar to the Gran Turismo. It would have been 3.
Yeah, no, 3 was still on the PS1, I believe.
It's either 3 or 4. Gran Turismo 3 or 4. It looks very similar.
I think it was 4.
It's one of those two. They're very similar to the Need for Speed games at the time.
So what year was this?
06.
2006. Okay.
So around that time, we're on PlayStation 2 and then porting over eventually.
So for a 2006 PS2 game, it looks pretty good.
It looks just fine. And playing it on Steam in a slightly higher, it looks good. I have no complaints with the graphics. Some of the environments in the racing mode. So some of the environments are destructible. Some of them are very not. And it's hard to determine what is destructible and what isn't at times. I got stuck a lot in the racing mode.
Yeah, that's very fair.
I mean, yeah.
So what year did you say again?
06.
Okay, so Gran Turismo 4 was in 04.
Okay. So yeah, it would have been after. I thought it was after Gran Turismo 4 at that point. So
yeah.
or Gran Turismo. first guess 3, but yeah.
Yeah, it was
And around that time, Need for Speed was starting to hit its.
Need for Speed was hitting its stride because that was when Underground
games.
came out.
And I had Gran Turismo 4 at the same time that I had this game too. I would still play FlatOut 2 over Gran Turismo 4 any day of the week.
I mean, to break out a racing game, usually I need to be hanging out with people and play with people. I very rarely in my life played racing games just for fun. There's a few. Burnout, for example. Burnout 3.
See, that's where you and I are very different because racing games are the bulk of what I play.
So I did not play. So yes, because of the way this game is tailored and everything on it, absolutely I would play this before Gran Turismo because I would want to sit down with all my friends. We'd have a couple of 2 liters of Mountain Dew. We'd have a couple of pizzas and Doritos, and we would just go to town on this one.
There you go.
Yeah, and because I kind of prefer those arcade type games, hence why I like fighting games so much, I do play a lot of solo racing games. And this one's really good. I didn't play the season mode just because, to be blunt, I didn't care. But because I was just kind of having fun with the basic racing modes. So,
Same.
Also, I didn't have a lot of time because I was too busy playing Terminator 3. So,
easily distracted.
Easily distracted. So I think that's the best mode is the stunt mode.
Oh yeah, by far.
As far as the racing modes go, as I said, some of the environments were hard to determine if I'm going to get stuck here or if I'm actually going to blow through it. So that maybe is also maybe the graphics haven't aged as well in that element. The only other thing in the racing mode that I didn't necessarily enjoy, and I think this is kind of a nitpick more than an actual oh my gosh, this is bad, but for a game where I'm going 150, 170, 180 miles an hour, never once did I really feel like I was going fast.
Yeah, that's
It
fair.
has the simulator feel of Gran Turismo, that racing,
Yeah,
where it's
that's
like,
fair.
I'm going really fast, but I don't feel it, where I'm like, for a game that's got ragdoll physics and the destructible, your car's getting all these dents and everything going on, and the hood will flip off back behind you and things like that, the speed just didn't ever feel like I was going fast, which is something that Burnout gets really well, and the Need for Speed games get well. Is that feeling of, oh my gosh, I'm flying. But maybe that's also versus a full tracks versus what those are, more street race sort of.
I think
that's more. It's kind of my big complaint with this game, and again, it's not a massive this ruins the game or whatever. One of my complaints with this game is that it's kind of not a mix, like a gentle mix, but just a hodgepodge of both simulator and arcade. And that could be good, but the fact of the matter is I feel like I should be able to control these cars easier than I do. They're very heavy, very simulatory, which adds to the fun in the Demolition Derby mode. But in a racing mode, I drift, and in an arcade racing game, I'd be able to do this sick-ass drift around the corner and then immediately peel out. In FlatOut, that's there's my bumper, there's my left tire, there's my right tire, there's my hood, and there's my driver. Hey, ragdoll.
I think if the environments had been a little more destructible, I think that would have been more acceptable for a lot of fun. If oh yeah, maybe I'm slamming into the wall, but I'm going through this wall, and some of that. But I can understand that this game's draw is not the racing.
No,
it's the main mode, but the draw of this game is the stunt mode, the Demolition Derby mode, the two-player attack mode. Those things and that's where clearly the development of the controls and everything went into. And so there's racing is kind of secondary feeling from that.
One of my little nitpicks about the main racing mode in this game is that when you're doing the main racing mode, all of the cars kind of have this similar destructibility and the similar health as they do in in the demolition mode. But the thing about the demolition mode is that you have a constant health bar, so you know how close you are to when your car explodes when it gets wrecked too much. In the racing mode, you don't have that.
Yeah.
So you have no idea how many more hits you can tank before your car explodes.
Which is very annoying at several points, but it can also make it very funny. Such as I was playing with Mason, and I was pretty far ahead of him, but that was only because I kept accidentally taking shortcuts, and I was banged up to hell, and Mason was like, "Okay, what's gonna happen first? And are you gonna win or are you gonna blow up?" And I'm like, "Oh, I'm gonna blow up. I know it." And then I hit a fucking wall, and I blew the fuck up.
And then yeah.
Another little nitpick is when you play 2-player race, it's just 2 players instead of there's no CPU cars, and that again, it kind of made the race feel empty. You know, when you're just going 1v1, which is fine. There are times when 1v1 races are fun, but I would have really liked if you had the option to add cars, if you could decide how many and things like that.
And also
odd comparison, but like kind of like in Call of Duty games when you can add bots to local matches. So
Yeah, this game's fun. That's just this game. There's
it's just a really fun game.
A lot of fun to be had in this game, and where like Hydro Thunder, where was a really fun game, but like could easily, you know, I could see myself like, oh, I'll play that. Like I said, to play it, I'm good. I don't need to play that again. This game, like if I was hanging out with friends all the time, this game I would much rather play than a lot of the games that were coming out at that time.
Yeah.
And I'm kind of like, man, everyone was playing Halo. I would have rather like been playing this.
Yeah.
I mean the thing that I mean Hydro Thunder wasn't a bad game at all. We sung its praises, but the thing that I think this game does better than Hydro Thunder is the content.
Yes.
Because in Hydro Thunder it's racing and racing.
That's pretty much all you get.
But in this game, you know, there's racing, but there's also the stunt mode and the demolition derby and the challenges and all that other stuff.
Clear differentiation of the vehicles.
Yeah.
Yes.
One of the things like playing on the PS2 and then playing on Steam, I did a couple of different cars and things like that, and realizing some of the different handling and how they do, and I was like, oh man. This complaint I was going to come through was, wow, I can't control the cars, and this was like, oh, that was just because that car has bad handling. And there is some problems with the handling, but
I mean, I also learned that the hard way because I remember I forgot what I did, but I picked this car for racing mode because I'm like, I cannot control this. Like, this is bad. I'm actually not having fun. And then I picked like a truck when I was playing with Mason. I'm like, oh, okay, I'm just an idiot.
Yeah. I did like that there's like a clear distinguishing factors of all the cars, but at the same time, because like there are cheat codes in this game. I don't know if you. I
didn't do it, but I do know they did.
But yeah, and there's a cheat to unlock all of the cars, and at that point, why wouldn't you just pick the best ones? You know, that point.
That's fair, and also. At the time, we were starting to get more and more into more customizable stuff on cars, and there's not a whole lot of customization. There is some, but there's not a whole lot of customization in this game.
Yeah,
which, again, it doesn't take away from the game necessarily, but at the time, a lot of games were featuring that sort of thing, and that kind of has become the norm at that point, so this is more of a throwback to before that.
I mean, I would also say customization in this game would be nice, but it would probably be kind of lost because, like, oh, this is my new paint job. I painted it purple or whatever. Then you'd make one wreck, and it's like, well, it's all black now.
That's fair.
And look, this game was not sexist. You can throw both men and women out of your car.
Equal opportunity, equal rights, equal fights, baby.
Which is there's something a little disturbing when you're, because I didn't realize that, and I just selected quickly, and when you're launching this small lady out of your window, and I'm like, oh, I don't necessarily feel as good about this right now.
Hey, you know what? She signed up for this.
No, I think you signed her up for this.
But also the fact that
the guys are getting fucked too, so it's okay.
All of the stunts, there's the simulated look like it's in the middle of like an Olympic event, this crowd there, and while Thomas and I were playing, we're like, this is the darkest timeline that has ever existed.
Yeah, because like I think we brought up at least gladiators were fighting each other for survival. This is just legit throwing yourselves like who can have the funniest suicide.
Yep. It's just really fun. Like that's going to be the kind of the comeback word to a lot of it, but I had an absolute blast playing this game.
Yeah.
I went out and I said I found it on Steam on sale and bought it because I wanted to keep playing this occasionally. I was blind to the coolness of FlatOut until
Sounds like a religion. Mason's the fucking pastor of
Yes,
FlatOut. I
yes. Join me and come see the light of FlatOut 2.
worship at the altar of ragdoll physics and Rob Zombie.
Yes, and that, you know what? That's actually a perfect segue for something that I was going to bring up, which is the soundtrack. I think this.
So good.
I think this
Yeah.
is at least with the games that we've played before, is at least tied with Sonic Adventure 2 for the best soundtrack.
Considering the amount of mediocre soundtrack games we've played at times,
Yeah, I
look,
mean,
we just got off of G.I. Joe, Rise of Cobra.
that had a
Do I
soundtrack?
remember any of the music in it? Not at all.
No.
Or the bland Ben 10 soundtrack, or...
Well, that just reused music from the show.
Yeah, and it was bland.
Yeah, it was
Yeah,
bland.
that's fair.
They reused
'cause-
bad music.
That's fair.
Well, because Ben 10, the only song I can remember is the theme song, and the only theme song I can remember from G.I. Joe is the song where you use the fucking power-up. Mm-hmm. That's only because that's, like, the only thing that's loud enough to be identified as music.
So music has not been, outside of SA2, something that we've consistently talked about on this podcast, because...
I mean, did anyone remember the Hydro Thunder soundtrack?
Not particularly.
Really. Not particularly.
And it was...
I mean, I think the only this will be the third time we brought up a soundtrack, because I know we've talked about it in SA2, and we talked about it in Dragon Ball Budokai.
We did.
Yeah.
Because I
We
loved
did.
it. So that was more about the plagiarism, but
But like
Right.
this is why I want to bring up the soundtrack so bad. Is because let me just list off some band names here for you: Alkaline Trio, Fallout Boy, Megadeth, Motley Crue, Nickelback.
Nickelback!
You know what? I'll give it this. It does have the one Nickelback song I like.
look
All
at this
of them.
Nickelback.
all of them.
Papa Roach, Rise Against, Rob Zombie, Wolf Mother, Yellow Card, Zebra Head. They're all in the soundtrack of this game, and it's amazing.
Something that a lot of games, and this is also the time, 2006, I remember, I think it would have been Madden 2005, had one of the best soundtracks and a lot of the same
I mean,
crossover things like
yeah.
that.
And the SmackDown versus Raw series started in here, and they had smacking soundtracks.
Some of that
yeah.
also might be nostalgia goggles, but also, look, I remember the games of this time having great soundtracks.
Look,
the ones that used actual, like, licensed music.
Look, there will never be better music than the mid to late 2000s, and that's not at all nostalgia talking. What are you talking about?
But yeah, when I look through the soundtrack and thinking about the songs that I remembered, I think this and also the original Rock Band, which we also had, we played a lot as a family. I think both of those definitely influenced my current music taste.
Yeah,
I could see it.
I brought up earlier the ragdoll physics are the second best part of this game. That was kind of clowning, but genuinely, and this isn't a diss on the rest of the game at all, because like we've brought up 700 times, and we'll probably bring it up 700 more. The game is really fun. It's really silly fun. The soundtrack's the best part.
Oh yeah,
And
that's
that's-
fantastic.
And again, that's not dissing the rest of the game. That's just how good this soundtrack is.
It's just
And it kind of makes me like this is a perfect game where you get some carnage going. Mm-hmm. Like,
Which is probably why when they ported it over, they called it Ultimate Carnage.
yeah, exactly.
And you know, bringing up the Ultimate Carnage port, even that game and all the other FlatOut games, the soundtracks of those games cannot touch FlatOut 2. This one has the best soundtrack out of the entire franchise.
Well, because it's really good music to just start slamming shit to.
Oh yeah.
Like, I think the best example is Rob Zombie, because he's also in Twisted Metal several times,
makes
actually,
sense.
to the point where he's a playable character in 4.
Oh no way, really?
Yeah, it's very weird.
That's amazing.
But yeah, like this is just the perfect soundtrack to just start.
To just wreck stuff.
Yeah, wrecking stuff, peeling out, driving through buildings, which might be one of my favorite parts of this game. It is hard to see which environments are destructible, but when you do, and you just like rev up and clear this building out, just shattering windows while you're driving, you feel like you're in an action movie. Like it's
super
badass.
Cool. Well, I think
Oh,
I even
yeah.
said when we were driving on one of the races, and I went through one of the like store windows, and I was like, "Hey, I'm pulling Terminator 3 here."
Yeah, that's exactly what it felt like. I was like, "Hey, it's Terminator 3."
And the boost button, the
Yeah.
fact that you can boost and you gain boost by jumps, tricks, different things to get
Hitting
yourself.
people.
Yeah, to
Yeah.
get that boost up. The more the cooler stuff you do, the more boost you'll have. And the ability to break that out consistently means that in like in the big races, even if you're a bad driver, you don't feel out of the race, which is a cool feature for a game that is so much a party feeling game.
Yeah.
That people of all different skill levels could all feel like they have the chance to be able to play.
Yeah. I will bring that. You did bring it up already, but I do like how easy boost is to get in this game.
Oh yeah.
Because it very much reminds me of Burnout, where boost is just easy to get. And that's because you're supposed to be spamming the shit out of it. You're supposed to be just boost, boost, boost. Crash through a department store window. Thousands of people lose their jobs, but fuck it looks cool.
They'll rebuild. It's fine.
Look, this is clearly a post-apocalyptic society that is deeming who is going to be their ruler on which ruler can bring forth the ragdoll physics of people and murdering them and playing games with their peasants.
You know what? That would explain how empty the cities are.
That would explain everything. Okay, but you brought that up as a joke, but now I'm realizing, like, fuck, what if there was a Death Race game with FlatOut 2 as, like, its
Oh,
base?
man.
Like, that would have been
Yes.
kick-ass.
Yep.
Yes.
Just add machine guns or whatever, it's fine.
This game's fun.
It just
And,
really
like,
is.
There are little things that I said. There are little nitpicks. There are things. It's not a perfect game. It's not a.
I wouldn't even say it's the best game we've played, but
No.
brought it up. It's the most.
It's one of the most fun games.
It's up there,
and
at least.
We've also covered some kind of shit
yeah,
games.
so, that's part of the opening, talking about that we play a lot of bad games.
A nice change of pace. It was nice to shift gears, if you will, into something good.
But I think also at the time of it coming out, 2006, with where racing games kind of were, it is an interesting kind of snapshot to go back into and look at and be like, okay, I can see where from this Burnout 3 would eventually, take over. Where the genre would shift to is that because Need for Speed kind of brought the speed into there, because Gran Turismo was always there. Need for Speed brought the speed to the racing genre in a lot of ways. Burnout kind of the speed and I get to destroy things.
Yes.
And destroy environments. Whereas this game kind of fits in between that.
Yeah, I was going to say, which is probably why the game has more simulatory feeling controls. Because I brought that up as a criticism earlier, and it is still kind of something that I dislike. Again, it doesn't break the game at all. But when you look at it, Burnout was out, Need for Speed was out. They had those more arcade controls, and Burnout had the destruction. So they were just like, well.
I made the same comment when playing Hydro Thunder, and I'm going to make it again. I really kind of wanted to play this game with the steering wheel controller.
Yeah.
PlayStation steering wheel, like just kind of to feel how it would feel, the steering wheel. I don't know. I don't think that would have affected like the stunt mode, but a lot of the racing, I wonder what enjoyment level that would have added, if any at all. Because I can tell you, I know Burnout 3 is really fun with the steering wheel. My family had it. We used to play it all the time. So,
and as much racing games as I've played, I've never played any with a steering wheel before.
The PS2 steering wheel controller is really good.
Huh.
I think it's the specific licensed one, I think of what it was, but they had a really good steering wheel
Interesting.
controller.
That would make sense because isn't Gran Turismo still the highest selling PlayStation?
It was at least one. It's at least one of the highest grossing series. Yeah.
I was gonna say, I believe it's up there. Well, you can buy a PS2, PS3 compatible controller on Amazon for $78.
Yeah,
Alrighty,
see, that's exactly why I never bought it and used a steering wheel, because they're also friggin' expensive.
Download this podcast, send it to your friends, tell every single person to get us a huge listener group, and then we buy a steering wheel.
And then we buy.
Step 1, people listen. Step 5, profit. Step 6, steering wheel.
And then we can start playing other games with the steering wheels.
Exactly.
And then it's like, all right, we bought the steering wheel. All right, give it to us. And it's just an actual steering wheel. No, you fucking idiot.
Wrong one.
No, that's when we break out and we play Mortal Kombat with the
steering wheel.
Yeah.
Jesus.
No, obviously we need to play Dark Souls with the Guitar Hero controller.
That's one of my favorite subgenres of like streamers that play the games. Where when there was someone who beat Kingdom Hearts 2 on the hardest mode with a steering wheel controller.
Yeah,
Jeez.
There was.
And I've seen with the Guitar Hero controller. I've seen with the guitar.
I've seen people. Oh, I forget what it was. I think someone genuinely beat like one of the Lego games with a Guitar Hero controller. I know someone beat Donkey Kong with bananas. Like they somehow got bananas hooked up to electricity, and they would just smack the bananas, and that would be his movements.
When Final Fantasy X-2 came out, because Yuna switched over and she wielded guns, and they made specific PlayStation 2 gun controllers. But there's only one mode to use them in, and they're not particularly great controllers, so like, with the buttons on the back of them, but
yeah.
anyway, I'd love to get a hold of those. They're very expensive. They were, I believe, Japanese exclusive, so.
I mean, I would take a PS2 gun controller just because, I mean, look, we got to play some of the Time Crisis games
Oh, yeah.
at some point.
That is a must at some point.
We need to find the Resident Evil chainsaw controller.
Oh god, I forgot, about the
that
chainsaw
existed.
controller.
Oh my holy god. I forgot that existed. Mason, you brilliant son of a
I
bitch.
remember that controller.
Yeah.
That is it's so.
It was shit.
It's so weird because, Chainsaw Man is an enemy in Resident Evil 4. You never use a
never use
chainsaw
a
in that
chainsaw.
game, though.
I'm pretty sure that was part of the PlayStation 2 port.
I
was
believe
that they
so,
introduced
yes.
that. Because obviously RE4 was initially a GameCube game, but I believe in the PlayStation 2 port they made like the weird controllers and things like that. I know they added a new gun and a couple of other things in it, but
I'll bet if you try to find it, it's going to be, like, stupid expensive.
Oh, probably.
Probably
but I'm
it's a
just
collector's item, I
curious
would
at
assume.
this point. Ooh! Yeah, that's a chunk of change. That is
much?
around, on Amazon, $775.
Yikes.
On
So-
eBay, that is $1,000.
I need you guys to find more friends and download the episode to more friends.
So we could get the chainsaw.
You got pen pals, right? Go right to them.
Send them the link in letter form.
Write it out. Like, write out the link to this podcast.
Anyways, FlatOut.
Yeah, play with the Resident Evil 4 chainsaw controller. Look, they call it
Yikes.
Ultimate Carnage in the port, so it only
It
fits.
needs real carnage. The chainsaw controller to play flat out. Oh my gosh.
Oh, man. That kind of made me sad, because I just realized this is a better Carmageddon game than the last Carmageddon game we got.
Yeah.
When was the last Carmageddon game?
It was, I believe, for the PS3 or 4. It wasn't great. It was like Carmageddon Ultimate Destruction or something like that.
Because I didn't play the Demolition Derby mode, but there haven't been a lot of Demolition Derby games overall. Like
No.
they exist and they're.
I mean, there's like
it's a smaller genre, but
there's like car combat, but that's not exactly the same. Because like Demolition Derby, there's no weapons. You're just ramming the shit out of each other.
yeah. Which is again why a death race game
Yeah.
using this sort of system would be pretty cool.
It was Carmageddon Reincarnation, and it was
Reincarnation.
Yeah. It was PS4 and Xbox One came out in it came out in 2015 May 21st for Windows, and then the PS4 and Xbox version came out in July 2016.
I think that's just a re-release of the first game, though. I could be wrong.
Yeah.
No, it's an updated version of Reincarnation.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, well.
So, an interesting thing about this game that I didn't mention earlier was that after the port to the 360, they also made a version of the FlatOut 2 that was released on virtual programming in 2008 for the OS X, and also then they made a Linux version of the game as well. That was launched in 2014. So this game has been and studio and everything have been. They worked on a lot of different platforms, which is noted by their games. You know, their first two games were Windows games. Then FlatOut was Windows, PlayStation 2, and Xbox. Then they made an N-Gage game. FlatOut 2 again, PlayStation 2, Xbox, Windows. Carnage went to the 360. They made Sega Rally Revolution on the PSP. Ridge Racer Unbound on PS3, Xbox 360, and then obviously with THQ, the Wreckfest, they was on all the PlayStations, all the Xboxes, and the Switch.
Yeah, but they made Wreckfest, and the really funny thing about Wreckfest is that apparently soon, at some point, I don't know when, they're coming out with an Android version, and I cannot imagine playing that game on a phone, but Lord willing, I'm gonna try because I like Wreckfest. So,
Wreckfest is one of those games I really want to like more than I do. I'm just not into the simulator controls. And
That's fine.
I've never played Wreckfest.
You
Honestly,
you
didn't know
really-
it was a game until
Oh
this day.
man, it's fantastic. It's a lot. It's very similar to FlatOut 2. Honestly, it's slightly more simulation based, and the car destruction physics are a lot more realistic, which I like in a racing game. I like being able to crash cars realistically.
So it's really funny to watch the roles reverse. So when I bring an anime game and Mason's like, I don't know anything, and then Mason's like, racing game, and I'm like, I don't know anything.
Like racing games
And then
are
good
all
old
that I
Thomas,
play.
well-rounded Thomas.
Hey, that's a fat joke, you motherfucker. No, I'm kidding. Wreckfest is just one of those where it's like, it's fine. I'm not a big fan of it. Mostly because it's going to sound weird. I have the same relationship with Wreckfest that I do with Fortnite.
Okay,
And that's because they're both games that I consider fun, but they take up so much goddamn space on the console. So whenever I want to play something else, I'm like, well, I'll just delete those because I know I'll never play them.
It's a very big game, and a lot of that is because of the physics to it, the realistic crashing and all that.
Which I'll take over whatever the hell fucking... Oh, I know it was a Medal of Honor VR game. That's like, a VR game is 125 gigabytes.
Oh my.
Big games.
Yeah, and that's all exclusively because they have FMVs in it in a game released in like 2021. So I'm like, okay.
All right. So my favorite mode was stunt mode.
I love stunt mode
Stunt
too.
mode?
That's my favorite too.
Probably some mode.
Stunt mode followed closely with the Demolition Derby mode, and especially playing the Demolition Derby mode in in the special vehicles, the bus and the semi truck. Doing the Demolition Derby in those vehicles is a blast.
Yeah, I can imagine that sounds really, really fun.
Just being able to, and then they up the ante with the big vehicles in Wreckfest, where you can do a Demolition Derby in a big, huge combine.
I was really hoping you said like a jet carrier.
No,
Wait a minute.
It's just a huge combine that you can just roll over.
Like a
cars
combine
with.
harvester.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
Oh yeah, and it's a power trip.
I haven't played much of Wreckfest. So.
That's fair.
I think so. I didn't play Demolition Derby, but I really did enjoy the race mode. So
Again, there's not really a bad mode in
no,
this game.
there isn't, and because while the controls aren't always perfect for the mode, they're never like bad. So it just you can easily just jump in and play.
Yeah, again, me bitching about the simulator controls is almost 100% preference.
Yeah.
Because
Oh yeah,
I mean, I'll bring up a racing game. It might be next season, but there's one called Split Second I love. That's arcade. Burnout's arcade. Need for Speed's more arcade. I'm just not a big fan of simulators.
yeah.
What about the Cruisin' series?
That's very arcade.
Yeah.
yeah.
Oh, yeah, because you were bringing that up for arcade. Yeah, I'm an idiot. My bad.
The
Happens.
as not the hugest fan of say like Gran Turismo, I've played them and I don't dislike them. I say it just kind of meh on a lot of the Gran Turismo. The realism feel of it and that sometimes feel in this game mixed with the bonkersness of the environments and throwing people out of it. Sometimes I'm like, oh, I kind of wish the controls really leaned a little bit more into the arcade craziness.
Yeah.
But at the same point, it's not bad controls.
No.
And speaking of the arcade craziness, we've spent this long talking about it, and we haven't devoted any time to the best car in the game, the Flatmobile, which is just one of the greatest original car creations for any racing game ever. Because
Original, quote unquote. It's the Batmobile.
fair enough, but it has the best top speed and acceleration stats in the game. And the worst handling stats. So it is.
Yeah, so
You'll be hitting 300 miles an hour in a car with basically no steering.
Yeah, so Mason basically pulled like a fucking evil scientist from a Bond movie. He's just like, here, Thomas, I want you to play this.
Pretty much.
And I tried, and legit, I made it like 3 minutes max. and it was like, well, there goes everything, and I'm dead. Like,
But one of my favorite things about driving that car though is when you do oval tracks, because you're going so fast in that car on oval tracks you can drive on the walls. It's amazing.
and not like riding them like NASCAR. Will do
No, you're
sometimes.
straight up sideways
You are on the wall.
On the wall.
Like some fucking speed racer shit. Like,
There's some really fun physics in this game.
Oh yeah, the physics are fantastic.
They spent some time making sure things worked, and I don't necessarily mean like realistically worked, but like, God, that's cool. Like work, you know? When you see like in the stunt, you know, when you launch your driver and it hits something and then everything collapses around it, you know, those sort of things, which happen numerous times. Or, you know, you launch yourself into a wall and then have the car right behind you.
right. I mean, like,
When you have 1 degree of launch angle and go straight into a wall, I'm not speaking from experience or anything like that. It's definitely your driver is dead.
Yeah.
you're
Cadaverific.
either dead or you're like Looney Tunes embedded into the wall. Mm-hmm. I mean, like, it's going to sound weird, but you know what this game reminds me a lot of now that I'm thinking about it? I literally just thought of this comparison. Driver. Mm-hmm. And that's almost exclusively because of the physics. And I say I didn't like simulatory controls, but with Driver I think it works. But that's also because I'm kind of a whore for the Driver series.
I like the Driver series.
I don't know why, just something about it rubs me the right way. But this game kind of reminds me of that. Specifically, like, I remember in Driver I will occasionally like pull 180 by accident and start backing up, and I'm like, oh, that feels badass, again, like an action movie. And that happens a lot in FlatOut too, where you'll like hit something and then you'll do a 180, but you just shift it in the reverse, and it's like, fuck, that's cool.
Yeah.
Like,
also in the racing mode, the ability to quickly reset and you get stuck is a really nice thing. That's really nice, because I get stuck in racing games all the time.
Yeah, especially because legit, it's like instantaneous.
Mm-hmm.
So.
And yeah, you still have a little bit of a delay, but it's like, okay, back up, forward, back up. Nope, just quickly reset.
Yeah.
It's not like Mario Kart where you reset and it's like 5 seconds of just you spamming the brake like Lakitu, let me the fuck down. But in FlatOut, it's legit. You press the button and you're back on the track.
And you're back, it's very quick.
And I appreciated that. So developers, thank you. That, you know, making things where I am not stuck for 5 hours.
And then
nice.
not only does it like reset you immediately, it also makes you like kind of transparent for a little while, so that like you
someone
don't immediately crash.
Someone
again.
behind you can't immediately hit you. Yes.
Yeah.
Both for their sake, they're like, hey, I have an opportunity to get ahead, and there's suddenly a car appearing in front of me, and also for your sake, you know, so you're not immediately getting stuck again or damaged. So it's a nice little touch.
A lot of modern racing games do that. I think it might have started here, that
Interesting.
system. At least I don't remember a game doing it before that. Maybe Burnout did. I haven't played a bunch of Burnout games.
The thing is, I don't really remember a lot of the Burnout racing, because most of Burnout play is the demolition, the destruction mode.
Yeah.
You know, fair enough. So,
It might be, but I'm also like, I don't remember a whole lot of the racing in Burnout, because all I remember is destruction
That's
mode.
the one thing I'll take away from Paradise, is that it got rid of the destruction mode.
That's so much fun.
It's fantastic. Yeah. Getting to a point where you can make your car explode. So fun. So fun.
The higher your property damage and the more money it costs, is the higher your score. It's just so fun.
And the fact that you can drive a taco truck.
man,
The fact that my favorite thing in Burnout was to create chain reactions. You're like, oh, if I create this, you know, thing, that's going to explode, which will cause this, which will fly over there, which will break that, and then I trying to time it. That game was so fun.
Man, if you like destruction in video games, you'll like Split Second. Destruction racing games, rather. Like I said, we'll play that eventually. It might be next season or the one after that, whatever. But we're playing Split Second because I love that game.
Interesting.
Legit.
I mean, the more racing games, the merrier. I
legit
love them.
Split Second is my favorite racing game of all time. So,
Right.
FlatOut 2.
It's really fun.
Said it a million times. Yeah, it's fun.
It's really, really
It's
fun.
really, really fun. On this podcast, we like to ask 2 major questions of every game we play. The first one is, how does this game hold up?
Nah, it's fine. No, I'm kidding.
I don't think this game, as it is, holds up about as well as I remember it holding up. But yeah, as a PlayStation era game, PS2 era game. I mean, it does hold up remarkably well, and the fact that they were able to port it over to the 360 with pretty much no changes except visually, and it's still a fantastic game. I think that speaks volumes for how this game is.
I legitimately would say this is probably of all the games we've played, it's the one that holds up the best.
I
think so. And that's not to insult some of the platformers that have probably all held up better in a lot of other aspects of it, but without a camera to worry about rotating things like that. I think this game, you can sit down and play it. You're not going to have any issues. There's nothing that's like, oh my gosh, that's a bygone, forgotten part of an era. I have to relearn this. I have to relearn my kid brain to get this going again. I think everything about it held up really well.
The most dated part of the game is the soundtrack, and that's dated in the best way.
Exactly.
That's really is the only part of it that's dated, and it's the best part.
And I think that's a really good thing for racing games because, especially in the PS2 era, a lot of those racing games held up pretty well. But when they don't hold up, you know it. So
you feel it.
Yeah.
You really feel it.
I think any genre, racing is the easiest to make a game that will last on forever, or not forever, but for longer periods of time, because you're not having to worry as much about a moving camera. You're not as worried about some of the other elements of it. But as long as the environments don't hinder you, as long as the graphics are are fine, whether they're top notch or whatever, that they don't age in wrong ways, and as long as it's still fun to play, you're good.
That's.
I won't say racing is like the easiest genre of a game to make. It's not. It's hard to make a racing game, but it's the hardest to fuck up, if that makes any sense.
I mean, that means you've never played. I think it's Off-Road Truckers.
A big rigs over the road racing.
No, that's a different game I'm thinking about. But I know that game.
That
there's a game where
bad.
literally half the game doesn't exist. You can drive off the map.
And that sounds a lot like big rigs.
Sounds like a lot. Look, I said hard to fuck up, not impossible.
That's fair.
Also, you haven't played the later FlatOut games.
Again, hard.
I think that segues perfectly into our second question. Would this game deserve a reimagining or a remake in a modern setting?
See, this is actually kind of a weird thing. No.
Mm-hmm.
And that's not because it doesn't deserve it, but because I don't think I'd want to see it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's simply because of... I mean, the gameplay would probably be fine, but there is a significant possibility that they could fuck it up. Because we've seen with a lot of remasters and remakes, they fuck up the hitboxes a lot. Because this game has so much destruction physics and everything, would I take just a straight port of this game for the PS4, PS5 store, Xbox One, Xbox Series X store? Yeah, if I can put it, just put it on Nintendo Switch or something. But a remake, not really.
Yeah.
And that also part of that might be you're not going to be able to license the soundtrack again.
Yeah.
This is a perfect blend of right place, right time with everything. And a lot of re-releases get rid of a lot of songs.
Mm-hmm.
Particularly, I remember Burnout Paradise gets rid of this song called Finger on the Trigger. And that shit was my jam. And they got rid of it in the remaster, and I'm still upset.
That is actually because when they did Ultimate Carnage, that was something that happened, is that they ended up gutting the soundtrack and replacing it, and it's not nearly as good.
Yeah,
it's just not.
But as for a reimagining, part of me says yes, but another part of me is I would like to see these destruction physics and everything else taken to another extreme. Again, give me a death race game with this style of physics and everything like that.
My answer is I think twofold. Just a straightforward remake or reimagining. No, I really don't need. It's perfectly fine. It's held up well. You can pick it up pretty easily. It's on Steam. It's on you can find the PS2 or the Xbox version. It has the ports, a couple of ports obviously to the 360, the PSP. But I really like the stunt mode.
Oh yeah.
And would I like a game fully centered around that? With ragdoll physics, maybe add a few more mini games, just centered around it. Yeah, you could probably convince me to that pretty easily.
Make it like a $20-$30
Yeah,
download.
yeah,
And it's just the party games.
yeah. Have fun, sit down party games.
Oh, yeah.
You could easily convince me to sit down and play, especially on say like the Switch on the go for something. Maybe you're not going to play more than maybe 30 minutes a day. 30 minutes. Maybe to a couple hours a week totally for a while and that type of thing. You're not going to put a ton of time into it, but it's a good like if you're sitting down on the go or riding somewhere.
Yeah,
that could be a really perfect kind of fun setting.
Again, I think we said the same thing for Hydro Thunder, but just imagine like 6 people in the same room, but you're just playing the stunt mode.
Oh man. Oh man. I think that I'm pretty much on the same page as you, Thomas. I don't think that we really need a straight remake of this game, mainly because we've already had that with Ultimate Carnage, but also because I don't know. There's really nothing that I want to change with this game. Like even though visually it doesn't look as great as recent racing games. It's still okay.
Graphics
It's
are
still
perfectly
they're
fine,
perfectly fine.
So-
You don't have to change it, which is why I would prefer a port.
Yeah, because it's strange because this is one of those rare games where we've gushed about it the whole time. Like, yeah, it holds up. It's pretty good. But then when it comes to remake, it's like, no. Because
There's just
it
not a
holds
lot
up.
more to do with this game except for like redoing a lot of stuff. But I worry if you like redo it, you're gonna not have some of the charm of this game.
Yeah.
That's kind of for me with a remake, and also because it has been ported so many times. It's kind of similar when we did SA2. When John said when he said there was like, well, I can play SA2 on every platform,
everything under the sun.
So like, I just wanted maybe some elements of it. And that's kind of where I'm at with this game is that I would like elements, yes, but overall this game, I have access to it. I can find it already. I don't really need a remake or a reimagining. Maybe I need to play Wreckfest apparently, but
Yeah.
Hey, you know what? We're getting adventure elements in Sonic Frontiers. Where's FlatOut Frontiers, baby? Just a Breath of the Wild style front.
See, I don't. Yeah.
just racing. It's in the Cars universe.
Oh, jeez.
So like it's the
How
same
would the
style.
stunt mode work?
I don't know.
You just launch the car, like the car just flips.
But you're going through like Breath of the Wild style. Oh my god, this is a terrible game, but I'm suddenly very into this.
I'm not.
You want to play a Cars game?
Yeah, you know what? Fair enough. But
It's like, yeah.
going back to the original question though. No, I don't want like a remake or a reimagining. Yes, I want it to be like the next Resident Evil 4, where I can play it on anything. I want to be able to play this game on an enema. All right, I want to be able to play it on anything.
Samsung Smart Fridge, baby.
Yes, please.
They could easily. I don't know what the licensing are, but I guarantee it could easily probably be dropped on a Game Pass or a PlayStation type of thing easily if they, depending on it. Now again, I don't know what some of the licensings or all that, but that would be an easy one where you could play it on those. Since it was never on a Nintendo system, I don't know if the Switch was a possibility on it, but.
Well, I mean, Wreckfest was on the Switch.
Well, yes, but I'm saying FlatOut was never on it. So.
Well, yeah, but I don't think that would be totally out of the question.
Well, because games have what they were on also has the licensing that you have to overcome and things like that. Okay. Doesn't mean it can't be. It just means that the port would be different thing. Whereas because it was a PlayStation 2 or an Xbox game, it's just putting it on the store because there still is Sony still has some of the license or Microsoft still has some of the license that they could do that with it.
Especially Microsoft. Since it has 2 versions of this game, one for the Xbox and one for the 360.
Yeah.
Probably be fairly easy for them.
I absolutely think so.
Now,
I'm also
my worry would be that they'd put Ultimate Carnage on it.
Probably if they did, that would probably be because it was the specific version for Microsoft.
Yes.
And then the PlayStation would put the PSP one on there. So that's what they would do.
Yikes! Oh, really?
You know what's weird? You call that it's FlatOut Head On, right?
Yes.
The PSP one. Head On was a weird title for the PSP that they used a lot because Twisted Metal also had a game on there called Twisted Metal Head On.
Well, that's.
I don't know why that's funny to me, but
something about the PSP.
Yeah, Head On. What?
But that's kind of where I'd sit with that is like they could port it if they wanted, probably, without knowing the license. I think easier. Would a port be fine? Sure. I said I've got it on Steam, so like I've got the port pretty much.
Yeah.
It's on, and it's not like the PS2 is an inaccessible system. So
Right.
Yeah, that's fair.
So like,
gonna say-
or anyone getting an Xbox or as well, it's not inaccessible at this point. So that's
Yeah.
where kind of like
Is-
a remake or even just a port isn't as necessary as much as I would like just take elements from it.
Yeah. Again, I think this is one of the ones where like reimagining is probably the key. To it.
But alrighty, well that is FlatOut 2. Tell us what you think about it. Do you like this game? Have you played this game? What is your favorite stunt mode?
What's your favorite song on the soundtrack?
What's your favorite song on the soundtrack?
You can answer all of these questions and more just by sending an email to bleepyouplayed@gmail.com. That's bleepyouplayed@gmail.com, and where we will gladly read your email on the whatever episode follows it, discuss whatever you might want discussed. We would gladly love community and people talking about it. Go ahead, Thomas.
No, I was just sorry to be a dick and interrupt, but it sounded like you were the way you say bleepyouplaying.com or bleepyouplaying@gmail.com. It sounds like the 1-800 numbers. Like call 1-800-BLEEP. That's 1-800-BLEEP.
I got to repeat myself on those, but yes, it does kind of sound like that.
No, I'm not judging you because I'd be doing the exact same thing. Just pointing out.
But yeah, if you're listening to this podcast on Apple or iTunes, you can give us that 5 stars. You can type some words. You can put some words in there. You can tell Thomas, hey, I like Shadow the Hedgehog.
And I'll block you.
You can tell Mason, hey, why are you so insane and made them play Go Vacation? You can type it in there.
You can say, hey, Mason, Nickelback is good.
Ooh, you can say that. If you're on any of the other ones, I think Spotify has a, give a rating.
Yeah, it's like
the rest of them, then just share. Share the podcast. Share it with your friends, your uncle. Make it a conversation this upcoming holiday seasons. Hey, while we're eating turkey here at our Thanksgiving dinner, have you listened to What the Bleep Are You Playing? Make it a conversation starter. I think this is a brilliant idea. No repercussions could possibly happen from it.
We're going to get a lot of racist uncle followers out of it.
Yikes.
So anyway, we'll be back next time with, well, something very, very different.
Get good, you slut.